Rio de Janeiro with a big man.
Kaya, G'day, Assalamu Alaikum, and welcome to Rio de Janeiro, coming to you from Walyalup, Fremantle, Western Australia. My name is Abid Iman, and my word, do we have a ripper conversation on the episode with Robbie Gaspar. Robbie and I have crossed paths a little bit in West Australian football. He's a seriously impressive guy with some awesome stories to tell. He was the first ever Aussie to play professional football in Indonesia. This is one of the world's most populous countries, and they absolutely love football. So you can only imagine the stories he has to tell about that. He's a pioneer when it comes to his extensive experience playing football across Asia and even coming through the ranks in Europe as well. Our conversation takes in a lot of key messages, including what it's like to be an Indonesianist, quite a good term in itself, and the active role that he's played in facilitating international relations through sport in Indonesia. Robbie is a great guy, and there's some awesome messages for the future as well in this conversation. So to keep convos like this flowing on the pod, please make sure to subscribe and tell one of your good mates. Now it's time to sit back, relax, and enjoy. Robbie, mate, it's an absolute pleasure to have you join me on Rio de Janeiro. I think it's perfect timing, and also the fact that our journeys a little bit have traversed at times. I know you've played at the same cricket club, junior cricket club that I played at Ardros, and you also come from the mean streets of Mount Pleasant, WA.
Yeah, grew up there, and went to primary school there, and loved my time there, and also loved playing cricket down at Ardros Cricket Club. And I think one of the players I actually played with, Sean Gillies, went on to represent the state. So what a player! You could just see he was destined for big things when I played with him there.
Oh wow, mate! What was your role in cricket? What did you enjoy doing?
I liked a bit of both. I like batting and sort of being a left-hander as well, and like a little bit of bowling, right arm, and sort of medium pace, and just love being out there, love playing. I think being here in Australia, growing up in the summer, watching a Boxing Day test and playing cricket out on out in the streets or in front of the house as well. I'm actually doing that now with my little boy as well. So we're playing cricket, and he loves it. He's actually playing down there at Claremont Medlands Cricket Club with his mates. So it's just great to see. Playing all different types of sports, and cricket, what a great sport. Just love it. So
you were one of those kids that was sports sampling and trying a bit of everything?
Definitely sort of done a little athletics, played soccer, played basketball, played Aussie rules at school, because at Mount Pleasant we didn't have soccer at school. So I played the Aussie rules, and just tried everything. But how do you say, soccer was always my number one love. And sort of when I went to high school to John Curtin, everything else took a bit of a backward step, and just focused on soccer, and that was it.
Yeah, so tell me about that, because you did go to Croatia, and I'm really interested in what was it like, first of all, being introduced to the game in Australia, where it wasn't even in school, for instance, so it's a little bit of a niche sport, and then making that move to Croatia. So there's a bit going on there, but I'm really interested.
Yeah, so my parents' background is Croatian. Parents used to go down to the Spiel Dallies club, and they had their soccer teams down there as well. And then, my brother played soccer, being 5 years older than me, always wanted to play. And then when I turned around 5, sort of got the opportunity to play with Spiel Dallies. And how do you say it? Just love playing soccer and love just that community aspect of the game. And, even still to this day, a lot of those players that I played with under 8, when I was 5, 6 and 7, I'm still mates with them right now. And then after that, I moved to Melville City Soccer Club when we moved to Mount Pleasant and then Winthrop. And then after that, I went to Western Knights, where I made my debut, at 16 in the first team. And then prior to making my debut, I had the opportunity to go and play in Croatia. They wanted to sign me when I was around 15, and my mum said no. She said, you got to come back and finish year 11 at least. She was really big on education, getting a good education and finishing schooling, and something that she sort of never had the chance to do. And so after year 11, I think it must have been bugging her so much, she said, okay, you can go, and sort of moved to Croatia, moved to Hajduk Split. And that was like a dream come true, sort of my parents from Croatia, from Makarska, which is maybe an hour and a half away from Split. But you always followed Hajduk Split, and just to be able to play for them, for such a big club, was like like a dream. And my roommate was Dario Srednar, who went on to make 130 caps for Croatia. I think 7 of those years when he was playing for the national team, he was captain. Captain Shakhtar Donetsk to a Cup Winners' Cup. And sort of now he's the director of football at Shakhtar as well. And they're just a few players, to name a few, that I played with, and just to be in Europe and playing, like sort of such a big club and traveling around Europe playing tournaments and playing against some really big teams is phenomenal and something I'll never forget.
How does a move like that materialize? Because Hajduk aren't just a small club; they're pretty big deals. So how do you move over there and sort of make that adjustment and that come about?
My dream sort of from around 13 or 14 was just to play professional football. That was my dream. And I think I must have been bugging my mum. I want to go overseas. So she called my uncle, and my uncle went down to Hajduk and asked if I could. We've got my nephew. He's played in the state team. He's playing at Western Knights. Is he okay if he comes on trial? And they said, yeah, why not? So I just went over there on trial, and I'm impressed. It took me a little bit of a while to settle in, that change and that sort of level of football, and just that day in, day out training. And after a while, I really found my feet, and they asked me to stay, and I really wanted to stay. But Mum said, no, you got to come home, finish year 11 at least. And then I came home, and as soon as my year 11 finished, I was back on that plane and, back over there and playing.
You were speaking the language pretty fluently in that?
I was. I thought I knew how to speak Croatian up until I went over there. Like, how do you say it? Just being, there and having to speak it day in, day out was pretty tough. Luckily the club got me a tutor. And so I was getting tutoring twice a week, which massive help, because I didn't realise in Croatian, like that you had plural and singular. And when you're speaking to people, older people, you got to speak in plural, and out of respect and stuff like that. And so I got to learn all that. And it's just still to this day now, I still speak, fluent Croatian. Has sort of been fantastic. So, like that, I was able to sort of learn another language fluently and actually read and write as well.
What is the secret to football in Croatia? Because I know in Australia right now we're talking about optimizing our population and the fact that we punch above our weight, and Croatia, definitely with even smaller population, do some amazing things on the world stage. So you've been there. What is the secret sauce, you think?
Oh, there's a lot of things. I think they love their football. They have really good programs in place. They start from a young age. It's all about building that technical ability. It's not about winning at a young age. It's about learning how to play the game in the right way. When I was there, it was just always technical stuff, always with the ball, like against the wall, passing on the top of your feet, juggling, like sort of always plenty of small-sided games and, like 5v2s, 4v2s and so on. And, they start from a really young age, and they like to play a lot of small football as well, like futsal as well. And you see these big players. I used to play with these boys who were massive, but they were so good technically and so good on the ball and so mobile. And I think, they give their kids a chance as well to play in the top league, and they're not afraid to sort of, blood the youngsters. And it's just like a factory. It's phenomenal. Three semi-finals in the last 6 World Cups for a country of only 4.5 million people. They just produce world-class players year in, year out. I remember when I was there, Ajax had come over to watch the team that was a couple of years older than us, because they were just a phenomenal team. 13 of those players in the Hajduk under 19s got signed for the first team, and I think 11 were in that national team for that same age, and it was just phenomenal. I remember the Japanese coming over and watching our training sessions, what we were doing, and it was just it was so great to be there. And wherever you went to play games, you're revered. Hajduk, or it was Dinamo as well, and it was just really good to be in such a good footballing environment. So.
When Croatia played the Socceroos in 2006, you mentioned Dario Srednar, and he was on the pitch, one of the key instigators for Croatia. How were your emotions that night? Where were you watching that game from?
Oh, mate, funny thing is he did score that free kick, like an unbelievable free kick, But to be fair, I was actually playing a game the next day in Indonesia. We had a finals game, and it was on early in the morning, and I actually couldn't watch it. We couldn't get it where we were. And so I woke up the next morning and saw the result, and I was just buzzing that we actually qualified, I was sort of wanting Australia to go further, and just good to see Dario score. And how do you say it? It was just a bit of a, I think, dream for everyone to see Croatia and Australia. Croatian Australians actually seeing them playing against each other in the World Cup. And how do you say it? I was more happy to see Australia go through. So, it didn't really worry me the result. Most importantly, it was Australia won and went
That's
through.
it, mate. Yeah, that's it. And I'm really excited to talk about Indonesia with you shortly. But I just want to know what it was like to come back to Australia from Croatia, because you were playing at some of the bigger clubs here in Western Australia. What was that adjustment like then?
It was pretty tough, but I'd sort of, I'd grown my game and developed a fair bit. One of the reasons why I probably didn't stay in Croatia, I probably just was, I was sort of 16, 17, and I wasn't probably resilient enough. I didn't have that resilience to stick it out and just sort of continue on. I was sort of pretty homesick, and we lived an easy life here in Australia compared to what it was in Croatia. And I just sort of, it got me down being away from family, being so far away from home. And, I decided to come home and sort of, I was at Western Knights, but then I was probably going to play, but I wasn't going to be a main player. So I decided to go back and play for, Coburn City. And I had a really good year. Had like sort of played under Jerry Christie, who actually gave me my chance at Western Knights a few years earlier. And we sort of struggled, but I sort of had a pretty good season. Sort of ended up top goal scorer, sort of fairest and best. And then I sort of got a move to Sydney Olympic in the old National Soccer League. So it was great. I went and played with the Australian schoolboys as well over to the UK, which is such a fantastic experience as well. And how do you say it? It was great to be home as well, and also got to finish my U12 as well, which sort of I got into uni after that as well. So
I was trying to look for some of the clues as to how you made the move, the first move to Asian football at the time, and I saw a name. What does Peter Butler mean to you, and that journey that you took over?
Oh, so Peter, he's been like sort of almost like he's been a mentor and almost a father figure to me ever since I moved to Asia. So great, a funny story with Pete. Sort of he had a fantastic career playing over 500 games in the Football League. From all the way from League Two up to the Premier League. And I remember playing against him one day when he came back. He was playing for Sorrento and I was playing for Perth when I came back from Sydney Olympic. I had a really good game, and after the game, Pete comes up to me and goes, "Robbie, if you ever want to move to Asia, let me know, or move overseas, let me know." And I looked at him and I didn't know who Peter was, and I was a bit sort of taken back. "All right, no worries, thanks, mate, appreciate it." Then we played again, and he came up to me and asked me again, and I went, "Oh, far out, okay, cool." And then I went on trial to Italy, and I was struggling, and I called Pete up and I go, "Pete, I'm struggling, I'm looking for a club maybe in England. Would you be able to help out?" And he actually sort of within a day got back to me and goes, "Listen, I've got all these clubs lined up: Bristol City, Middlesbrough, Derby County. All right, just get yourself to England. We'll sort you out." So I just jumped on the next flight. I got to England. My brother was living there in London, and I got to Bristol, and I was there training for a week. Couldn't get a work permit, but then I came back, and I just kept in touch with Pete. And I actually moved to Brunei before then through another contact of mine. And then I came back again, and then I sort of called Pete and I said, "Pete, listen, I'm looking to move overseas again. Is there any way you can help out?" And he goes, "Oh, give me a few days." And within a couple of days, he called me back and goes, "Rob, I've got a trial for you at Sabat. Do you want to go?" And I said, "Mate, no, definitely I want to go, mate." And a couple of days later, I went over there, and the rest is history.
Rewinding, what is it like when you are on a trial at a club?
Great experience, just sort of Italian football. It was unbelievable. Went on trial at Empoli at Pisa Culture as well. I was there for 3 months. I was at Empoli for maybe just over a week. Sort of didn't make it. Went to Pisa. I was there for the rest of the time, and I just really enjoyed just the culture, the football, and how much they love football over there. And it was a great experience. And I came there after the transfer sort of window had closed, and I sort of wanted to sign, but I didn't, just all these things happened, and I just probably in the end it sort of didn't happen, and sort of came back home. But it's just such a great experience. I learned the language a little bit. I sort of picked up the language because you're just immersed in it so much. And, got to meet so many cool people, watch some Serie C games, watch, AC Milan play against Venezia at the San Siro, traveled all the way down to sort of Capodolando, Sicily, went to Rome, and went to all these cool places while I was there. And it was just such a fantastic experience. And it was just, it was also great seeing the difference, the contrast between England and also Italy, and the different types of trainings as well. And also, how people dress and how people acted and the culture and stuff like that. And it was just so great to sort of just made you, even though it was like a great experience, just made you sort of more worldly and enjoy things more, So it was great, got to meet some really good people who I'm still friends with to this day.
So we're looking now at Sabah, and that 2003 season, right? You make the FA Cup final in Malaysia. So
yeah.
What is that adjustment like from playing for Perth Soccer Club and some of the West Australian clubs in the most isolated state in the world to now being in the thick of it, playing in front of raucous crowds in massive games? I saw some YouTube footage of it, and I had to actually say, "Who's Robbie Gasper there?" Because it was you with the very blonde hair or very bright colored hair,
Yeah.
and you definitely stood out. You played very well with the left foot. Had a few free kicks from distance, but yeah, that FA Cup final. I'm just fascinated with that contrast for you.
So moved to Malaysia, and actually it didn't start off too well. Like I was there and I got injured just before the first game, and I missed the first 10 games of the season. And so that was sort of, but how do you say it? I was the president who ended up becoming the foreign minister of Malaysia. I asked him, Dato, can I go home and do my rehab? And he said, no worries. So he let me go home, do my rehab. So I came back, sort of earlier and also fitter and stronger. And then in the league, we had a really good run where I sort of actually scored 10 goals from 16 games. And so it was fantastic. And we also had a really good FA Cup run where we made the semi-final, but sort of due to crowd trouble, we got sort of kicked out of the FA Cup final. I scored a free kick. I thought it was actually a direct free kick, but it was actually indirect. The referee ruled it out, and the fans lost it. They come on the field and they were just riding, and then they abandoned the game. We lost the game 3-0. We're out of that. But then we went on this fantastic Malaysia Cup run, and I scored 3 goals in sort of the Malaysia Cup, but we made it to the quarterfinals, and we played Kedah in the quarterfinals, who we drew with on the final day of the season to stop them from actually winning the league. So we played them home and away, and in the first game we beat them 1-0, went away, and that first half I scored after 5 or 6 minutes on the counter. Redzwan, who played this unbelievable ball around the corner, he just wasn't even looking, just knew where I was, and it was just phenomenal. This kid had so much talent; he could have played anywhere, and then I'd never been under so much pressure in that next 40 minutes in that first half. I don't know how we didn't concede, but we went in the sheds 1-0 up, and Kedah must have been walking off thinking, what's going on here? We've just thrown everything at them. The kitchen sink, we still haven't scored. And then we came out in the second half and we scored 2 goals in quick succession. Then the game was over at 3-0. But then went to the semi-final. We're playing against Perak, who won the championship, and they'd beaten us at home in the league, home and away. And we drew 1-1 at home. And I think the game just, or the atmosphere got to us. It was the first time that Sab had filled the stadium there for a long time. And we drew 1-1, and we sort of didn't play too well, but we went back for the second leg, and, they thought they were going to just roll us and just beat us easily. And, after like 78 minutes, I sort of scored again to break the deadlock to make it 1-0 and 2-1 in aggregate. And then we scored again in the 91st, and they scored in the 93rd, and then we scored again in the 94th and 95th, and we won 3-1, and we're playing then we will go into the Malaysia Cup final. And that Malaysia Cup final is something I'll never forget. My mum, my stepdad, and my brother flew over for the game, and just the build up, the lead up to it was just something just phenomenal. It's probably the best experience I've ever had in football, but also the worst, because we ended up losing 3-0 in the final. But we sort of had a man sent off after around 55 minutes, and we were just pushing to get an equaliser at 1-0, and they just caught us on the counter attack twice in maybe the last 15 or 20 minutes. But we gave it everything, and the guy who scored a hat-trick against us in the final scored 50 goals that year, an Argentinian boy, and he ended up going and playing in Mexico. And it was just a great first season, like to be involved in Malaysia, do well in the league. We finished 4th, FA Cup semi-final, and Malaysia Cup Malaysia Cup final. And just sort of, I just wanted to play in Asia more, and just sort of really enjoyed it. And the rest is history.
That's so cool that your family could be there. Was it the Bukit Jalil Stadium, one of the biggest in the world?
Yeah, Bukit Jalil, and they were there, and along with 25,000 other Sabahans there as well. And just to walk out and see so many Sabahan fans there, and it was just phenomenal. But we're playing a team from KL, MPPJ Selangor, and they were supporting, like Selangor. They all came out, and it was just something I'll never forget. Firecrackers going off and fans going crazy, and it was just such a great experience, apart from the result. But something that I'll never forget.
And if we look at Brunei and your time there as well, you played for the Prince. How does that happen? It doesn't happen to everybody, mate.
So it happened like in 2002. I was playing at Perth, and the opportunity came to go and play in Brunei, and I always wanted to play overseas, and I thought, I just want to give it a crack. So I went over there, and it was just such a surreal experience. Meeting the Prince, being able to we were having lunch with him every day. I remember the first day I got there, his sort of minder or his sort of advisor comes up and goes, Rob, the Prince wants to see you, wants you to come with him. And I go, what? And so I ran outside and he goes, I dump in my car. So this brand new Porsche Turbo S and dumping it alongside him. And he showed me all around Brunei for the rest of the day. This is where I live. This is that. And I was just blown away. I'm sitting next to royalty and the guys who look after him, his sort of his security were driving a VP Commodore behind us, a black one, and I'm laughing. VP Commodore from Australia, So, but he was a great guy and just really humble, and he used to train with us every day, and he'd have lunch with him every day and have a bit of a laugh with him, and he was just a really good guy, and just to be able to sort of, get to know royalty, and he was just, down to earth and just like us. And that was such a great experience. And I was there 6 months. And then after I finished at Sabah, I had the opportunity to go back there again and play for another 6 months. So another half season. And it was such a great experience. And something I'll never forget, because, living in Brunei with all that royalty there, it was just sort of it's just something, really great to experience. And, it was, seeing the Sultan drive past in his car with all the sort of security and, like if his plane hadn't gone around for a few days, they'd send it up and just doing laps around Brunei and the airport and stuff like that just to keep it moving, and all the beautiful hotels and the polo fields and whatnot. It was just, it was something to see. It was such a great experience.
In those structures of football where you have, these wealthy owners or you have royalty involved with clubs, what's it like as a player, that pressure? Because I guess you're there to perform. How's that dynamic?
Yeah, like, how do you say, in Brunei, the prince was actually he was pretty cruisy, like sort of, you had three princes who had teams, so the crown prince had his own team as well, DPMM, and then you had Prince Akeem, had, I think, was it Home or something like that, they used to call it, and he was pretty cruisy. You just sort of, guys, just go out, do your best, enjoy yourselves, and whatever happens, but like sort of when I was playing in Malaysia, like Malaysia Foreign Minister and, the sort of the dignitaries and that were there, it was, a lot of pressure, especially also in Indonesia, they sort of want results and, being a foreigner there, if you're not performing, sort of your job's on the line. So, I was in Asia for over 10 years and I had 10 one-year contracts. So it was constantly, you had to be on the ball and, not sort of, how do you say it, dropping your standards. So, but, I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed meeting these different, diverse, group of people, so it was just, it was something I felt I was pretty honoured to do, be able to do something I love and travel around Asia and doing it.
Yeah, well, the next step in your travels was Indonesia, and the listener can't see what our attire is right now, but I'm wearing a batik from my best mate, Tim, from Indonesia, lives in Jakarta, and you've got the national team jersey of the mighty Indonesia team. Do they have a nickname?
Oh, yeah, they called them the Garuda, so Garuda Merah, sort of the red sort of eagles and that. And, so how do you say it? I'm wearing the, Garuda, and I've become a bit of an Indonesianist, just like I see yourself, you're wearing the, the batik, which are pretty cool. And, like you can wear it on a night out as well. So looks good on you.
Yeah, we should make some. Thanks, mate. Thanks. We should make some World Cup batiks or something.
That's it. How
did the move materialize to get to that first club in Indonesia?
So I had a couple of years in Malaysia, then 6 months in Brunei, and then I was just sort of in touch with Pete all the time. And he goes, Rob, I've just sort of spoken to an agent in Indonesia. His name's Jules and Anna Dennis. So Jules actually, he played for Cameroon in the World Cup. And he had a bit of a career in Indonesia as well. And he called me up and he goes, Rob, I've got a club for you in Indonesia. Would you like to come over? And I said, love to, mate. When do you want me? He goes, they wanted you here yesterday. So the next day I bought my flight and I was on my way, So, and no other Australian had been there and played there before. And so I was almost stepping in there to the unknown. And I had no reference point, what to expect. And I played against the Indonesian national team in Perth for the West Australian state team, and they were a decent side. And I went there and I was just blown away by the quality of the football and the standard and the passion for the game and how intense it was. And it was just, I'll never forget that first friendly match I had. I sort of arrived there on a Thursday afternoon, had a light session. Friday we trained twice, and then Saturday we jumped on a bus and we went to this place. We played against Pelita KS. And I remember we were going into the stadium, to warm up, and I was focused. And I could hear noise around, but I always had my headphones on when I was warming up. And then I didn't really notice what was going on. And they go, come, we're going outside. And so we walked outside and I turned around, looked at the grandstand. The whole grandstand was full. And I couldn't believe it must have been like 7,500 people there. And then slowly but surely, the whole stadium started filling up. And we played this friendly game, and there must have been over 15,000 people. And I thought, wow, what's going on here? And I was singing and dancing and chanting. And I'll never forget, like, the standard was great, and I thought, this is great. I'm really enjoying this. And how do you say it? I signed a couple of days later, and then the season started. How do you say it? The next weekend, and I didn't get my ITC, my clearance, until a couple of weeks later. And then I made my debut away from home against Persikapas Pasuruan in Madiun, and I was sold. I just loved it, and from then on, and I was there ever since. So.
What is the structure of football in Indonesia? Was there promotion relegation at that time? Was it? I know they're called Liga One now, but I understand it was different back then. So how's that evolved in the club?
They had like this sort of Liga Super. So they had the West Division and the East Division, because Indonesia's so large. It's 7,500 islands spread across 5,200 Ks, and the travel can be brutal sometimes. And I was in the West sort of conference, and so we played teams from Surabaya up towards Aceh, then the Sumatra, and then you had the East, and then the top four came together, played this thing called the Lapan Besar, the Big Eight. To be fair, the team that we had in the first year was the best team we had. I played in whilst I was in Indonesia, in terms of quality and players and the amount of national team players on the team, and also the foreign players are phenomenal as well. But for some reason, we just couldn't connect, we couldn't gel, and the coach couldn't get us to play a decent way, and we sort of struggled. And how do you say it? It was just fantastic. They had promotional relegation, so each division had 14 and 14, so 28 teams in the top league, and then you had six conferences in the second tier as well. And then they moved into a tournament as well to see who got promoted up to the top division, up to the East and West. But then later on, 3 years later, they made the one division called the Liga Super, or the Superliga, and they had 18 teams there. And so that travel was pretty brutal. But with Indonesia, they used to make it a little bit easier for you. You used to play 2 games away, 2 games at home, so you wouldn't have to travel so far twice. You'd be like, say, 2 games away in the space of 5 or 6 days, and you come home and play 2 games at home in the space of 5 or 6 days, and also from a cost factor as well for clubs.
17,500 islands, and you mentioned the travel and the vast distances, which I guess from the Perth perspective here in Western Australia, we're closer to Indonesia than we are to Sydney and Melbourne, our own cities in our country, our own capital cities. So it's a country of such significance to us, and you had the opportunity to have this front row seat in terms of the development of Indonesia into this country that it is today. What was it like, actually, just traveling through and seeing the diversity of the country?
It was a phenomenal experience, like Indonesia, like Australia is only 3,800 kilometres from east to west, and Indonesia is 5,200 Ks, and you've got all these different ethnic groups in one sort of country brought together by, Bahasa Indonesia, and you have 700 different languages as well in Indonesia. And one thing that brings the country together is the football as well. And just to be able to travel, like I always say, even West Java is different to Central Java, the manner of the people. And Central Java is different to East Java, they're all their neighbours as well. But you have a look at sort of East Java, you have a population of 45 million people, and then you got Central Java, a population of 40 million people, and then you go to West Java, a population of 50 million people. And it's just the difference, like your different teammates and how they behave, and the different types of characters as well. And I knew when we were sort of going to play in Makassar in Sulawesi, we're on for a really tough game. It was going to be pretty physical, pretty tough. Very high tempo, but we've been playing teams from Java. It's very technical and not as high tempo or as physical as what you're playing teams from, the likes of sort of even Papua. Like when we played against Persipura, they were phenomenal. They're like the Brazilians of Indonesia. They were just technically superb, physical as well. And you knew you were in for a game. And just traveling all over Indonesia, I was just so blessed, across the Jayapura, Papua over 7 times, up past Aceh to a place called Sigli, which is 2 hours past Aceh, and all the way through Sumatra, all the way through Kalimantan, Java. Sometimes we're doing up to 20 trips when we're playing games, throughout the season, away trips, and to go up through to some places I've never actually heard of or even seen on the map. And it was just it was like part of the whole, experience. And I just sort of, I just loved it, enjoyed it. And wherever you played, there was full stadiums. They loved their football. It just made it so almost, so much more enjoyable as well.
Being brought up in a Mediterranean climate, what was it like playing in those sweaty and tropical conditions that you would have been encountered with?
Yeah, it was pretty tough, to be fair, to start off with. Like in Malaysia, we'd kick off at 8:15. I remember only maybe a couple of games we played at 4:00 kickoffs, but in Indonesia, the first 3 or 4 years, we didn't play many night games. Most of them were like sort of a 3:00 or 3:30 or 4 p.m. kickoff, depending where you're playing, and that was pretty brutal, But you got used to it after a while, and by the second half, when the shade had gone over from the grandstand, started picking up because it's like a little bit cooler and stuff like that. And yeah, it was almost by the end of the season, it's like survival of the fittest because you played so many games. You played sometimes 40, 50 games a year with some brutal travel as well. And yeah, it was almost like survival of the fittest. And just if you looked after yourself really well, that's probably where I sort of done pretty well. So coming from Australia, where that sports science aspect was something we thrived on and we've done really well. So, I used to always have my fluids, my recovery and so forth, and make sure I get my rest, wearing my skins when I'm traveling, making sure I've got my protein powders and shakes and that when I'm playing and, after when I'm playing as well, and just sort of give me the best chance possible to perform at the best of my ability. So, so it wasn't easy, but something that sort of, you got used to, and you just had to really get your rest and really just try and sort of, mitigate everything. So
you said that you've played against players who are like the Brazil of, Indonesia, fantastic technical ability. Why do you think, or what do you think Indonesia needs to do to now really make a mark on world football or Asian football to start off with as well?
Yeah, really great question. I've been sort of asked this before, and I just think, like Indonesia need to follow a plan. They usually sometimes when they've got a plan, they sort of change, chop and change. You've just got to believe in themselves, believe in a plan, put a plan in place with respect to, like youth development, with respect to the league, improving their facilities for, even for their top division, encouraging more players to go out and play overseas and get out of their comfort zones as well. And just even from grassroots football, starting leagues a lot earlier where they're playing a lot more games earlier on. I don't think they play enough games at junior levels as well. And probably what people don't realise as well, because Indonesia is so vast and so diverse, it's sort of hard for them to sort of, have a decent league for the younger kids as well. So, but I'm a big believer in that football starts at home with Tom Bayer. And I think, if Indonesia can implement that, because they've got the love and the passion for it, it's just how do we sort of have a plan where they sort of engage with the coach education as well, improving the standard of the league, and also, how do you say it? Just believe in themselves and, sort of have a better plan in place, which is actually going to follow and not sort of chopping, changing. And don't think just 3-4 years down the track, think 15, 20 years and think big and believe in themselves.
The passion is something that is world class. And it actually really did surprise me looking at some things on the internet around the fan culture and ultras in Indonesia. But we know in football that sometimes passion and it can just tip over a little bit and become quite dangerous at times. But I want to actually talk about what it's like to be a big star at a big club. Malang, what is it like walking around and just being a superstar when in Perth and those places, your humble beginnings, and now you're in one of the biggest countries in the world and you're known by everyone?
Yeah, how do you say it? I think people realise, like sort of here in Australia, how big football is overseas. I was just blown away by the passion and how much Indonesians love football. The game's on TV every day, live, and I had a long career there, and I really enjoyed myself. I think I've done pretty well as well there, and they love their social media, they love their internet, and I was sort of pretty recognisable having blonde hair, and how do you say it? I played for some pretty decent clubs, and I was pretty blessed to have a decent career there, and I played with some players, and like one of my roommates had 5 million followers on Twitter, and one of the owners of Indonesian football, one of the football clubs, he has 64 million followers on Instagram. And, it's pretty humbling and, just to be recognised for what you do. And it's one of the reasons why I stayed in Indonesia probably for so long is because of the passion for football and playing in front of big crowds week in, week out. And you felt like you're playing in Europe. I gave Europe a crack, and I realised probably at a young age I wasn't going to be good enough to be able to crack it in the big leagues. And for me, like going to Indonesia was the next best thing. Not too far from Perth, from home, and only a 4-hour flight away from from Jakarta to Perth, or 3.5 hours from Bali, and like big crowds, and you felt appreciated, and and I sort of. More Australians started coming over, and the league was fantastic as well. It was enjoyable. You played against some really good players, and I played with a Liberian international who had played over 70 caps for Liberia, boys that have played for the Chilean national team, for the Cameroonian national team, and boys that have played at really high levels, and Indonesian boys as well, with no slouches as well. And then when I was playing there from around 2008 to maybe around 2011, it was the best league in Southeast Asia. So you had the best players from Thailand, from Singapore, from Malaysia, and from Vietnam coming in there and playing, and just so the league was just, was just buzzing, and playing from big crowds, and I was lucky to play off in some big teams, and I just really enjoyed my time as well. But it was just, it was phenomenal.
You made such an impression there that you were able to take a more of a driver's seat in terms of leadership for the players, which I find really, really interesting around the Professional Footballers Association locally there. How did that come about, and that passion for that side of the game?
I probably sort of, because where I played the position, I played sort of holding midfield. I always felt like I was a little bit of leader on the park there, and players that had issues used to come to me and always ask me for assistance and stuff like that. And I was never too afraid to sort of speak to the management on behalf of the players. And then the opportunity come up to, get on board the executive committee for their players union. So I sort of went there, and I sort of nominated, and lucky enough, and I was humbled to be able to sort of get on the executive committee with some of the biggest players in Indonesia, and some of their biggest players in history, and just to be able to work alongside them, and trying to, at a stage when there were a lot of issues in the game there, to be alongside them and just fighting on behalf of the players. And I think that's one of our Australian sort of traits. We stick up for our mates. We do what's right, no matter like I wasn't afraid to sort of speak up, and I think I was probably respected more for that as well. And I just sort of wanted to see the game grow, and I felt that the players needed a voice, for the game to be able to grow. And at a time when we were struggling to have a voice, and there were a lot of players not getting paid on time, a lot of friends who were sort of not getting paid, some up to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months without a wage. I went 6 months without a wage, and I just thought, you can't. How do you become the best footballer you're supposed to be? How's the game supposed to grow when, all these issues are happening around non-payment and just sort of basic things that we take for granted in Australia wasn't happening, So, I sat on their committee for 2 years. I think I was the first Australian player ever to sit on a foreign players union executive, and something that I'm proud of to this day. And I really enjoyed it as well.
What were some of the other issues that were facing players at the time?
You had the one with non-payment, and just sort of basic things, just not, like just decent training facilities, decent medical facilities, like even with respect to travel, decent accommodations, stuff that, players probably, in bigger leagues take for granted. Also having the players having a voice with respect to their schedule, like I remember playing 13 games in 43 days, and 8 of those games were away. And one of those games, it took us 20 hours from when we woke up to when we got home. So there was like 3 flights, I think 4 airports, and a bus ride, and we had to back up a couple of days later, play another game. And you can't be the best you can be. The league can't grow when you're sort of under that much. We're not robots. We need rest. We need decent facilities. We're training on our own, sometimes on our main pitch, and that just wasn't conducive to, Indonesia has all the ingredients to be a success with respect to the passion, the sort of the numbers of people that come to games and so forth, and they can build that infrastructure, but they weren't doing it at that stage. And luckily they are now, and hopefully we're going to see, sort of Indonesia really growing and becoming not just an Asian power, a world power in football.
Well, most of your dealings, were you speaking in Bahasa, and was that really helping you to connect with the different player groups and the like?
Definitely. So when I got there, I saw that, that it wasn't like Malaysia. Malaysia got away with being able to speak English. So everyone spoke English. But when I came to Indonesia, no one spoke English. And I also saw the foreign players spoke Indonesian as well. And I thought, far out, I've got to have to learn the language pretty quick. So
yeah,
fortunately, I sort of had, I spoke English and Croatian. I think learning a third language, it's a little bit easier. And so I just jumped right into it. and maybe after a year, I was pretty fluent. I get by and that as well. And I always got this great story. I played at a club, and we had a Korean boy. I didn't speak Korean. He didn't speak English. Had a boy from Brazil. He spoke Portuguese. I didn't speak Portuguese. Had a boy from Argentina, spoke Spanish. I didn't speak Spanish. We had a Cameroonian who spoke French, and I didn't speak French, and I spoke English, and we all spoke Indonesian together.
Oh,
So
wow.
I had mates looking at me like, "Oh, what's going on here? You guys are speaking Indonesian." And to this day, today, a lot of my former teammates, the foreigners, we all speak Indonesian together. And it was just, to learn the language, I think, it just made things a lot easier. I could sort of enjoy my time a lot more. And the first thing I told all the Australian boys that came over to Indonesia to play, I say, guys, learn the language as quick as you can, because it's going to make your time a lot easier, but also a lot more enjoyable. And, if I ask you to go out, immerse yourself in the culture, in the language, and trust me, you'll enjoy yourself a lot more there. And because I saw the players that didn't sort of want to learn the language, they struggled. They didn't last as long as the players that sort of had learned the language. It just really took time to sort of just learn in Bahasa Indonesia.
Nowadays you have Duolingo, but what were the resources you were leaning on back then?
I had like a little pocket dictionary that I used, just asking plenty of questions. So because the Liberian International, the first team I played for, he'd sort of, help me out, translate for me as well. And just trying to spend as much time as I can around, the Indonesian boys as well. And, listen to plenty of music, speaking to a few girls here and there as well, learn the language, texting backwards and forwards with people. And, I learned a lot of slang, which probably wasn't the best thing as well, 'cause I came back to learn, went back to university, I learned Bahasa Indonesia, formally, and that didn't really help because I learned so much slang. I had a lot of bad habits and stuff like that. But, it was just trying to immerse yourself and just try and even, I used to read the newspaper and see different words and just sort of, look at the dictionary, what does this mean and stuff like that. And just first to start off with football words, football combos, like left, right, push, squeeze, man on, turn, and stuff like that. Well done. And then like sort of, like other types of words as well. And, and then just slowly when you start learning more and more, you can piece things together and it becomes a lot easier in that. So, so I say to anyone who's looking to go and work in Indonesia, or, it doesn't matter if it's just football or anything, learn the language, because just make sure it makes you enjoy your time a lot more, definitely.
And that's one of the things I've seen you go to schools here in Perth, and you're talking to younger people about the importance of learning the language that is across our neighbours, basically. Hundreds of millions of people are speaking it, and the opportunity that brings to them. I see you're really passionate about that. So how have you evolved to that work that you do now, speaking the good word about teaching or learning Bahasa to younger people?
Yeah, as you sort of mentioned, we've seen a massive decline in sort of students learning the language. And I think that's, it's really disappointing because, Indonesia is our nearest neighbour. Like strategically, like geopolitically, also like economically, in the top 4 economy by 2050. And how do you get to know your nearest neighbour, like on a more, like sort of intimate level, or, like sort of better develop people-to-people links if you don't know their language, like so they can really get to know people by learning their language and develop real, true, long-lasting relationships. And, it's sort of disappointing that we're seeing a massive decline in that. And I'm passionate about, Bahasa Indonesia, and I'm trying to use sport as a bit of a hook or a bit of a tool to sort of get kids interested in it as well. And, saying how I'm jealous that they're learning Bahasa Indonesia in school and I never got to learn it, and would have made my experiences at the start in Indonesia a whole lot more easier and enjoyable if I learned their language. And it doesn't matter. It's not just have to be sport. It can be music, can be, food culture, can be arts, can be business and so on. And I think, like just trying to encourage your kids to stick at it, keep on going. It's, I know it can be tough sometimes, but if you put the time in, it'll be worth it. And, it's about that point of difference, like, and when you're going for a job, apart from, sort of having that sort of basic degree on, also speak another language or, and so forth. It doesn't have to be Bahasa Indonesia. It can be, like French, can be Japanese, it can be so forth. Just can we learn languages? And there's a crazy stat. There are more people learning Bahasa Indonesia in Germany than what they are learning here in Australia. So, I travel around and just try and encourage the kids to stick at it. I know it's not easy, but if they do put the time and effort, the reward will be there later on down the track.
Yeah, hopefully the the school curriculum can start to reflect that as well. So yeah, big work there. And I'm really glad that you mentioned food, because in terms of cultural immersion, that is one of the greatest ways you can you can get involved. And there's some amazing cuisine in Indonesia. But I'm also imagining that as an elite player, could you indulge as much as you probably wanted to? What was that like?
Oh, not really, because we're playing so many games in it, and yeah, you have to watch what you eat. And I was pretty strict with my diet, but sometimes if you travel to certain places, you couldn't places like that were sort of all small towns, and you couldn't really sort of be too picky. You just had to sort of eat whatever was there. And I sort of really immersed myself in the food and the culture, and going out with the players and trying where I would say if I was in in sort of Sumatra, the Sumatran cuisine, or in Makassar. My favorite cuisine is Choto Makassar, like a soup from this place in Sulawesi, Makassar. And the nasi goreng China in different places all around Indonesia, and soto ayam, or the soup and that. And I really embraced that. I really enjoyed it. And some of the foods that I couldn't really sort of eat too much of, but yeah, I sort of made sure that sort of I was there, I tried it, and just sort of, yeah. And also it's about conversation. You go there, you have food together, you can talk, have a good time, and it's a good conversation starter. And with people, and get to know you. So you go around, friends' houses, and and everything in Indonesia. A lot of it rolls around food as well. They love their food, and they're real foodies, and they love coming to Australia and trying our food, and traveling all around the world, and sort of trying different food. And so it was fantastic just to see the different food on offer as well, and some of the best even international food. Like sort of I've had the best Japanese ever I've ever had was in Jakarta. I was just blown away by how good the Japanese food was as well, and Mediterranean food, and also sort of Middle Eastern food and so forth. So yeah, Indonesia's just phenomenal, and just because I've never been there before, I went there in 2005. I was just blown away by how big and how diverse it was.
I had a chat with a Gojek driver when I was there in the last time, about 4 years ago now, and I love like chatting to locals as well, like you mentioned. And I asked this gentleman, "What's your favorite part of the country that you'd love to visit or you have visited?" And he mentioned a place I never heard before, which was Raja Ampat.
Yep, Raja Ampat.
Yeah, like have you been there yourself?
No, but I played against Percy Ram Raja Ampat, and we played in Sodong, so we didn't get the chance to go out there, which was disappointing because it's just beautiful, unbelievable.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite region? I'm seeing photos of that, and that looks amazing. But do you know anything better, or?
Oh, so I have a great story. I went to Papua, and we played against this team called Persimmon Manokwari. So we were scheduled to fly out around 1 p.m. And Pete Butler was just like a person. He liked to explore places wherever he went. And he woke us up all early around, like sort of, we're expecting to sleep in after the game around 7:30. He's knocking on our doors and going, "Come on, guys, everyone get up, get up." And we're going, "Come on, Pete." And he goes, "No, come on, everyone get up, get up. We're jumping on the bus, let's go." He goes, get your shorts on, grab your towels, let's go. So we just jumped on the bus, and we drove this place we came to this beach, palm trees, white sand, crystal blue water. And I just went, wow, this is beautiful. And I'll never forget it. There were all these tires that were blown up and tubes, and we all jumped on them. We're like around 100 meters offshore, just in this beautiful blue water. It was the best experience ever. In the middle of Papua, no one around apart from us, all our teammates together, bonding, having a great time. This beautiful beach. Yeah, so it was similar to Raja Ampat. It's just phenomenal. It's called the Four Kings, Raja Ampat, and it's a World Conservation Heritage listed site, and a great diving place. But next best thing was going to Manokwari, the beach there, and something I'll never forget as well.
Wow, mate, unbelievable. Yeah, and I guess that's the thing, isn't it? So many Australians head over to just your Balis, and a few people after a couple of trips would go, like, Bali is the gateway, and then would maybe be a bit more adventurous. But there's so much more to see, isn't there?
Oh, definitely. Like, as you said, a country of 7,500 islands, when there's just so much to explore, and just so diverse and phenomenal. And, Jokowi's trying to develop, I think it's the next 10 Balis or different tourist spots, all the way from Lake Toba in Sumatra across to Raja Ampat. And yeah, you can go up to Manado. You can dive off the islands there in Manado, which is some of the best diving islands in the world as well. And yeah, it was just phenomenal being able to travel to all these different places and see all these cool places, and have this experience. And I got to do it playing football as well. And like even like Solo and, also, just off East Java, some of the surfing islands there as well, like Banyuwangi and that. And I never got to go, but I got to go to Banyuwangi, but I never went surfing. And I'll never forget, I was there in the first year when I played this team called Seven Padang in Sumatra. And we flew in there and it's this like sort of small city. And I saw all these Australian guys with surfboards and I went up to him and I go, boys, what are you doing? He goes, well, we've got some of the best surfing islands here in the world off the Mentawais, I think. And I went, really? He goes, yeah, we get a boat for 15 hours out and just surf for a week. I thought, how cool is that? And, and they sort of, in Padang, this small town with all these other Aussies as well there. And I'm there to play football and they're off there to play surf and having a conversation and stuff like that. It's just, it was just a great experience. You never know where you're going to see an Australian, So it's a great experience.
That's the best thing about Aussies, isn't it? We're everywhere, aren't we?
That's it. We don't mind traveling, so immersing ourselves.
In terms of traveling for you, because you're now based in Perth, and how often can you get yourself over to Indonesia?
I used to get over there probably when I was working with the World Players Union, at least, 4 or 5 times a year. I was back over there last November. That was the first time back since COVID. I was there just before COVID sort of started for a mate's wedding, but then I was over there for the B20 in Bali in Nusa Dua in November. And that was a fantastic experience just to get over there for 4 or 5 days. And, it was just great to be back in Indonesia. It feels like I'm back home sometimes, like I just love my time there and love the culture. I love spending time and love the people and just sort of, get along with them so well. And, I look to hopefully get back there at least 2 or 3 times a year and just sort of keep up with my Indonesian language skills and just see what's going on because Indonesia is constantly changing, always evolving. There's always something happening over there. And it's just great, just sort of get up there and catch up with old friends and who I sort of almost class as family now as well.
And you can enjoy a couple more rendangs without having to worry about
that's
training and matches.
That's it.
FIFPro, mate, because the World Players Union is somewhere that you elevated your work, and that's a really interesting space because now at a global level you're supporting player development and that movement. So, what were you seeing at a global level?
I just feel that, from a player's point of view, we need a voice. We need to be at the table when it comes to, like sort of how leagues are going to be run and how things are going to be structured as well. We're not going to have, we can't have the whole say, but everyone's got to work together for the betterment of the game, So if it's, the clubs, if it's the federations, the fans, the coaches, the players as well, everyone needs to work together. And so after my time sitting on the board of the executive for the World Players Union, the chair of FIFPro Asia, Brendan Schwab, who's become a really close friend and also mentor of mine, asked me, Rob, would you come on board and help me restart the Malaysian Players Union, which went dormant for maybe, 2 years? And I said, I'd love to, Brendan. So, I sort of, he sent me a task of getting the Players Union restarted in Malaysia. And I went up there and over the next, I think it was from beginning of 2013 to, I worked with the Malaysian Players Union up to maybe the middle of 2014. I sort of, got the Players Union up and running. We organised maybe 250 players, elected a new executive committee, president, vice president, done a CEO search, who's still the CEO today. He's now sitting on the global board of the World Players Union. Got an office. And just, it was just such a great experience to go up there and just something I was so passionate about as well. And I think my language skills, because I learned the language in Indonesia, helped me so much going back to Malaysia and reconnecting with former teammates and also with players that I played against or probably hadn't heard me also, but I spoke the language. So I thought, this guy, he sat on the Play Union board in Indonesia, but he also spoke our language. You can see he's passionate. He's played here in Malaysia, but also played in Indonesia for a long time. And, I'd actually go to the clubs and say, listen, I'm coming in to speak to your players. Is that okay? If they said yes or no, I'd actually go up and speak to them and say, you can be there. If you don't like what I'm saying, please pull me up. But end of the game, I want to see the game in Malaysia grow. And, they used to come along to the meetings and, we'd work together and, I'd organise the players. And, it was such a fantastic experience. And then from there, I helped with the Indonesian Players Union, with their organising as well and strategy stuff as well. How do we grow, we sort of the Players Union in Indonesia as well further and also in India and also stuff in Korea and also in Japan and also then I sort of led me to work with a Players Union here in Australia, which is sort of also a fantastic experience as well.
Yeah, I mean, you're a life member there, which is the highest honour you can get. So congratulations on that. I think what I've seen through your story as well is just that commitment to learning and education development. You know, you've gone back to university, and are you currently still studying as well?
No, it's after 8 years, I decided I needed a break. So from when I retired, I sort of, big end of 2013, I just sort of, I was studying all the way up until end of 2021. So I needed a break for 2022. But I just sort of, I love learning, and I didn't study while I was playing, which I sort of regret a little bit. But when I came back, I thought I had this skill set. I've just used my feet for my whole career, and how do I sort of, develop a new skill set? And, I went back and studied a Bachelor of Business with a major in accounting in Bahasa, Indonesia. And also then I went sort of studied a career sort of counselling course after I finished that through my role as a player development manager with the Players Association. And in 2021, I had the opportunity during COVID to sort of do a grad cert in international relations. So I completed that, and just sort of, I love learning. I want to probably go back again and keep on studying maybe in a year or two's time. And I just, just constantly learning. Also done my C license in coaching. I've done my B license, didn't have my assessment in, too lazy to do it. And I just think, I'm always encouraging players, keep on learning, keep on evolving, keep on trying to better yourself and be the best you can be. So I think you're never too young to stop learning. Or never too old to keep on learning.
Being an Indonesianist, I start to see you a lot at events that aren't even sport related. The last time I saw you was at Australia Indonesia Tourism WA conference with the Premier
Indonesia
of WA.
Connect.
Yeah, Indonesia Connect. That's the word. Thanks for reminding me.
Great. It was great to see you there. It's fantastic to see you guys there. Football Western, it's phenomenal. So
yeah, it is really important to us to be there as well, and just have that visibility, because there's some big players in those rooms. So it's important. And what's so interesting is you learn about different industries who are all going through the same types of challenges as well. And how are you finding that transition to now working with other industries that are, looking at Indonesia, but you're really helping them. You're an advisor in many instances as well.
Sort of, it's like sort of, being the president of Indonesia Institute and speaking to all these different sort of industries and businesses look to sort of, jump into Indonesia. There's always, sort of negative stories about Indonesia, but there's so many good stories of people doing some really good things and, partnerships in Indonesia. And he's just saying to them, it's just like anything, takes time. It takes, you got to go up there and you got to immerse yourself in the culture and in the country as well. It's not, Indonesia is not somewhere you're going to sort of go up there and it's going to be transactional. It's got to be relationship based, and to say, if you do work hard, you'll be a success up there. And just sort of how do you say it? And also using football or that sort of, or that soft diplomacy as a means to build those people to people links, or those business to business links, or those government to government links. And it's just a bit of an education piece that someone like myself went up there and never been to Indonesia before and loved it, sort of going to continue going up there. I'm an Indonesianist and got so many people, like, for example, on our board of the Indonesia Institute that have been up there, have done so many fantastic things, and they're Australians as well. And if you put the time and effort into it, that you can be a success up there as well. Because I think a lot of people look, further than Indonesia. Indonesia is almost like this invisible country, to our nearest neighbour. People look further to China and other places when we've got Indonesia, our nearest neighbour, and, we've got to develop partnerships. And so it's a win-win for both countries, and try and encourage even Indonesians to come here in Australia and vice versa. And for me, it's just about lobbying and on behalf of, sort of Indonesia, and sort of, trying to develop those better links between WA and, also Australia and Indonesia, and something that I'm extremely passionate about.
Apart from being there and immersing yourself in person, for the listener, is there any advice on any resource or book or podcast or anything that's really helped you or could help somebody understand Indonesia and prepare them?
I think, I like to read a lot of really good articles from Professor Tim Lindsay from the Melbourne University. I also like Duncan Graham. He writes some really good, hard-hitting articles. He's honest. He calls both sides out. He keeps both sides of the, and Indonesian and also Australian sides honest. Professor Ben Bland's good as well. Ross Taylor, the former president of the Indonesian Institute and founder, he writes some really good articles as well. But also, if you want a lighthearted one about sort of culture, and sort of, seeing it from a different lens, like, how do you say it? His name is far out Damien Hu, and he's on Instagram, and he has some pretty cool videos, but he also brings to attention some, like things that, we can do better as Australians as well, to understand Indonesia a lot better as well. So there's some pretty good sort of resources out there, just sort of really engaging with, like for example, us, the Indonesians always happen to help out the Australia-Indonesia Business Council, the Australia-Indonesia Youth Association, and, all the Consulate General here, who's doing a fantastic job as well, Ibu Listiana. And also you got your Invest and Trade team as well, Jobs, Tourism, Science and Innovation. So many people or resources out there to want to help, like grow the relationship. And just ask, ask the question, because I think there's always people there willing to help out. So, yeah.
Thanks for sharing those, mate. We'll put them in the show notes. And I guess, Robbie, what's next for you? I see you are coaching and getting out there with the local club. I've seen you in, the Western Knights, which is so good to see. I'm sure the players really appreciate that. And going out on the circuit, speaking to young people, which is inspiring. What do you see for yourself in the next period of time?
From a football point of view, I'm really enjoying coaching my little boy, my little girl, Vash in the clusters, and my stepsister, she was the former president of Western Knights, and my stepmom washes the jerseys. And so we're really sort of immersed in the club, and love taking them down there just to watch the games. It's always great to see you down there as well. And, being able to sort of just sit back and watch the games and see my kids run around the ground and just do what I was doing, just developing really good friends. And, I think we lose sight of, how good clubs are from a community aspect and how it brings people together. And, I just sort of really love that. So from that football point of view, it's just really enjoying my time, watching my kids grow and hopefully, play football as well, or other sports as well, playing cricket as well. But from a work point of view as well, I finished working up at the PFA. I was there for almost 6 years, and I played a development program, and I enjoyed it so much, but I probably needed a new challenge. And now I've been for the last 14 months working for a little startup company in horticulture, which has been really fantastic, out of my comfort zone, working with some really cool people and just learning so much, and just, developing a new skill set and sort of trying to use my degree and my sort of knowledge to another industry. And from an Indonesia point of view, just really enjoying my role and my time as the president of Indonesia Institute, and just got a really fantastic board and such a really good, diverse group of people, female, male, Indonesian, Australian. We all speak the language. We're all passionate about Indonesia. We all live there. And so how do I help grow the relationship and just use my sort of position as a bit of a voice, bit of education piece on, like how great Indonesia can be. And because I think sometimes the media does portray Indonesia in this negative light, and just trying to sort of counter that. But just sort of really enjoying life, enjoying my time with my kids, and just hopefully seeing, hoping the Matildas win the Women's World Cup, and hopefully, the Glory doing well, and Australia, Socceroos winning the Asian Cup. And just just enjoying my time, and hopefully going back to university and learning, and just continuing learning and taking one day at a time as it comes.
Oh, beautiful, mate, beautiful. And there's a few things you mentioned there that I just wanted to zoom in on, which was athlete activism. You see this in this day and age. There's a lot more demanded of players in terms of what they say and what they should be getting, what they should be supporting, and how they actually express that. What are some of the challenges or thoughts you have around that space?
I think it's fantastic. I think the players should be able to have a voice. When people come out and say, "Oh, you should stick to your sport," I think that's that's a pretty, how do you say it, ignorant view. I think that because athletes are, how do you say it, they're at the coalface. Sport is very transient. I say, from an A-League point of view, when we've done a study, you're a professional for 2.7 years, so it's not very long. So. I think athlete activism is fantastic, and if players want to speak out, I think it's fantastic as well. And we're seeing a lot more of it, which is great. And, they have a pretty big reach with their social media and their voices. And I think it's great, I think it's, I'd encourage it if they want to do it, if they're comfortable with it as well, but only if they're comfortable with it as well. You don't want to force them to do something they don't want to do. And I think it's great, because I think, they should be able to talk about, challenges, whether it be, climate, whether it be, other issues as well. I think it's great to see that, and it's, hopefully, long may continue and grow as well. So.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Yeah, and another one as well was just around those differences between Indonesia and Australia. And one that I've thought about a little bit is the fact that it's a Muslim country. It's the biggest Muslim country in the world. I was really interested in your, firsthand experience as an athlete and also as a person living in that environment. What are our misperceptions about all that?
Yeah, I think, we've got a lot of probably misperceptions about it as well. And a lot of my friends are Muslim now, and they've got a lot of really close friends, and it's just the same as us, good people. And, that's their sort of, religion, and just about treating people with respect and being humble and humility, and also being there during Ramadan and just really, experiencing that as well. And I learned so much from them as well. And it's been such a fantastic experience to go over there as well and be able to immerse myself in that culture, and just sort of, because I think we're so, how do you say it, in a bit of a pigeonhole, or, like sort of here in WA, we're not sort of, this was, back when I was sort of growing up as well, it wasn't really sort of, I didn't really experience it too much, but going to Brunei, going to Malaysia, going to the largest, Muslim country in the world, Indonesia, and just learning about, like sort of Islam as well, and, like, and learning to appreciate, the culture and the religion as well, and how do you say it, understanding, and it's, the more people can go there and understand, it's just, we're all the same, like just about being a good person, respecting each other and being humble, being humility, and respecting people for their beliefs and their culture and stuff like that. And I think we got a lot to, not all of us, but some of us do have a lot to learn here, and about sort of respecting people's cultures and people's religions and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's something that sort of, I really enjoyed when I was over there. So,
Ramadan is an interesting time to be a footballer. What were some of the adjustments you had to make as a team and that regimen?
I remember in Brunei, we were training at 10 p.m. in the evening during Ramadan. In Malaysia, we'd stop. The league would stop as well. In Indonesia, sometimes we'd play right through Ramadan, and I had so much respect for the players that, were playing games during fasting month. It was just, for them to be able to do that, I was just sort of, blown away by, the resilience and, like just being able to do that, not being able to drink from sun up to sundown, not being able to eat as well. And, they'd break fast and they'd go off and play a game, and they'd still be running, by 90 minutes, and just so much respect for them, and, then appreciate, what they were doing as well. And how do you say it? So how do you say it? We'd also sometimes train, during, fasting month, and they'd train and then go off and break fast. And, I'd make sure I wasn't sort of, drinking during training as well. And I'd sort of, like show respect, because I'm in some, like I was in Indonesia, it's their country, and, I'd try and respect, the culture as well as much as possible. And just really, how do you say, not eating in front of, friends that were fasting, not drinking in front of friends that were fasting, just, small things, develop that, when you're there, I think also through learning the language, you develop that cultural competency, that Indonesian literacy, just, just a sign of respect as well, I think goes a long way when you're there. So,
Robbie, really, really thank you for your time. I think respect is one of the key themes, and I just love your ability to be so adaptable, and everywhere you've gone, you've really left a mark, and you're someone definitely admire, and will be following closely your next steps. And I got to say thank you as well for building those bridges between the two countries, and hopefully they keep bearing fruits. Thank you so much for joining me on the show, mate.
Thanks a bit, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm humbled to be able to sort of come on this show and be able to speak to you about my time, like sort of my career so far. Mate, you do an amazing job. And, I was just saying before, the speakers you've had have been phenomenal, and sort of, I thoroughly enjoy listening to the podcast, mate. You're doing an amazing job.
Thank you, Robbie. There we have it. That was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for listening. As a community-cultivated, independent podcast, your support is really, really helpful, so this Frio de Janeiro podcast can continue. Until next time, keep smiling, keep scoring.